Greetings. I'm going to talk for a few minutes about for loops and a few other things. Now, a loop in a program is a code that gets a part of the program or the whole thing to repeat. In the case of a for loop, which is one example of one such thing, we know ahead of time how many times this program is going to repeat. So in this example, it's going to loop 24 times. Let's see how this thing actually works. So I know I'm doing a for loop, so I have to type in for, because that's the name of the loop. And then this I right here is the name of a variable. We can call that variable anything. We don't have to call it I. We can just call it loop. 1 to 24. That's the example on Microsoft's Small Basic Guide on Chapter 5. But I can just say 1 to 20. I can say anything I want. This is going to be a counting program that's going to display each number 1 through 20, one right after the other, one right below the other. So below, we're going to have text window.writeLine because we do need to write something, and the name of the variable is going to be inside parentheses. So when I click run, it's going to display 1 through 20. And it did. 1 all the way to 20. You notice how I'm actually in the Small Basic software, not the web app? I find that it's been working a little bit better for me. It's been causing less issues. So we are going to be doing this for the foreseeable future, unless I change my mind on something. Anyway, back to the for loop. I can change this number to whatever I want. Excuse that. I can change this number to whatever I want. And it ends at 15. I can also count up in multiples of whatever number I want. So I can count up in multiples of 2. And it goes 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. It's not going 2, 4, 6 because I started at 1. But if I want to start at 2, I can. 2, 4, 6, 8. So far, so good. I can also count backwards. I can go from 2 to 1, or 20 to 1, step minus 1. So the step has to be a negative number when you do that. And as you can see, it goes from 20 all the way to 1. So that's a simple example of a for loop. So let's see how we're going to make use of this. Here is our next program called the for loop activity. And I say in the description, after reading Chapter 5 of Microsoft Small Basic Guide, and I would like you to look at that, you will write your own counting program. It will either count from 0 to 100,000, from 0 to negative 100,000, so we're counting down, or display an error message. So it will either do one of those three things, so it sounds like we're going to need an if statement of some kind in all of this, and we will. But let's look at what we're going to need to make this program fully function. A starting point for the program to loop back to. Another loop? This is a bit different than the for loop. We can put a label on any part of the program, and then later on, further down the code, we can say to go back to that label. So we're not actually looping a certain number of times. It's just that if the program reaches this label down in the code, it goes back to where we originally put that label. So we can call it start, we can call it beginning, we can call it anything. Let's see one of those in action here. I'll just write text window.writeLine hello. We don't have to put a label at the beginning of the program either. I'll just call this label. Okay? And now I will add another line asking for a name to be typed in. Just keep this simple. Enter your name. I don't even need to declare a variable here. I can just write text window.read and that should be good enough because we're not doing anything with anyone's name here. Go to label. Hello, enter your name. Okay, I will enter in Tom. And look at that, it's saying enter your name again. Jerry. And it keeps on going. Notice how it didn't go back and say hello again. It just went back to enter your name. That's because I put my label below where I wrote hello. So when I say go to label, it only goes back up to here. So when are we going to make use of all of these things here? So we're going to ask the user to type in either 1 or 2. We will need some variables for that. If a 1 is entered, the program will count from 0 up to 100,000 in green text. We can worry about the colors later, but we're going to count from 0 up to 100,000. I gave an example for you to use, so you can use n for number if you want to. If 2 is entered, the program will count from 0 down to 100,000 or down to negative 100,000. So if we enter 1, we count up. If we enter 2, we count down. If the user enters anything other than 1 or 2, the program will display an error message. So this is prime if statement material, I would say. In fact, I even wrote it that way in sentence form. So if we count up or down, the program will go back and ask us to enter in 1 or 2 again. So the only time we're not looping back to the very beginning is if anything other than 1 or 2 is entered. That, I guess, you could say breaks the program in a way, even though we want it to be broken. That makes sense. So if we enter in 1 or 2, we count either up or down. After we count, we go back up to the top, ask the user to enter in 1 or 2 again, and then the whole thing will keep repeating forever unless anything other than 1 or 2 is entered. So that's how all of this stuff is going to be combined together. So read each point carefully and just think about which kind of code you'll need to use in which situation. And I'll see you soon.